The Florida Gators have landed their second transfer portal commit of the cycle as tight end Lacota Dippre. You are a Florida Gator.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free to listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And the Florida Gators have made a trade officially. First off, I am Brandon Olsen, lifelong Florida Gators fan, all that jazz. But the Florida Gators have made a trade. The Florida Gators have acquired tight end Lacota Dippre. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. That's the best shot I got for you right now. But the Florida Gators have landed tight end Lacota Dippre in exchange for head coach Billy Napier. Hell of a move. The Florida Gators obviously won it because, well, how can you possibly lose it? We saw what was on the field. But the Florida Gators have landed Lacota Dippre, and it's an ad, right? I will say that it is an addition to the team. He's an interesting player. He's from Lakeland High School, not in Florida. Lakeland High School in German, Pennsylvania. I want to say that's how it's pronounced. More of an inline tight end than anything else, but he's also a different kind of inline tight end than I think that we're used to for the Florida Gators, because when we talk about an inline tight end lately for the Florida Gators, it's been Hayden Hansen, right? And it's been inline blocker, not going to make very athletic catches. Look, like I love Hayden more than the next guy, right? But he's an inline blocker that doesn't have a large catch radius. And Lacota Dippre is an inline guy. You look at his James Madison snaps, and he's mostly inline. Not Germantown. According to 24/7 on 3 rival, Jermynpa. But Lacota Dippre played most of his snaps inline. Played a bit in the slot. Very rarely went out wide, which one of the biggest issues that we had with tight ends in 2025 for the Florida Gators was all the out wide snaps. But Florida has traded Billy Napier for Lacota Dippre, and they win 6'4", 253 pounds, not as big as Hayden Hansen to replace him. And I'm not trying to constantly compare them, right? Because they are still somewhat different players. But 6'4", 253, been an inline guy at James Madison. Really good blocking numbers. The blocking film is pretty decent. I will say that one of the concerns I will have is that when you watch him play Power 4 teams, he wasn't as good as a blocker. You look at Louisville, which has a generally good defensive front. You look at Oregon, which obviously has a great defensive front. And Dipprey wasn't as, also, again, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name, but Dipprey was not as sound as a blocker in those matchups. I do think he can come in and play a role. I'll say my biggest thing here, and this is one of the portal takes that I'm not going to be a massive fan of, just is what it is. We spoke about this, right? He's an inline tight end that wasn't very involved in the passing game, had 17 catches this year, had 26 targets, 2 drops on those targets, gives him a 10.5% drop rate, which it's tough because that's a higher drop rate than Hayden Hansen had, but also some of the catches that Lacota Dippre made were catches that we never saw Hayden make. There's a play where he is near the red zone or near the end zone, and he goes up and one hand reels it in. And that's stuff that we wouldn't see Hayden make, right? We didn't see those kinds of plays. Hayden was a big dude with not a big catch radius. And by that, I mean, he's not really going outside of his frame much to make those catches. Okay. Lacota Dippre can make those catches. Lacota Dippre significantly better after the catch. We've seen Lacota Dippre hurdle. Hell, we saw Lacota Dippre get a rushing touchdown in the college football playoff. He's got 4 carries this year for 49 yards and a touchdown. He's an athletic upgrade here. I think as far as pure blocking, I still think Hayden's good there. But athletically, yards after the catch, yeah, that's what you got there from Lacota Dippre. More athletic, more yak ability there. The thing is, he is another guy that is not really used in the passing attack. Again, 17 catches, 4 carries, much more effective going downfield. And I would like to see him play that role. Like, I think he could be an inline guy. I think he can be a contributor. Do I want him to be my tight end 1? Not really. Do I think he's going to be tight end 1? Not really. He's got a couple of years of eligibility remaining. So I don't know if he's going to be tight end 1. I don't think he's going to be tight end 1. I wouldn't want him to be my tight end 1. But it's to bring him in as an inline guy that we say, hey, you're an inline guy. That's your role. You're going to fill it. I'm cool with that. I'm not really opposed to saying, hey, we're bringing in guys to fill roles right now, right? I don't think anybody's expecting this is going to be funny. As I was saying it, I was like, oh, this is going to be fun to say. I don't think anybody's really expecting to get a Sun Belt tight end to come in and be an immediate starter here that's going to be productive in the SEC. I do think there is a role for him to fill. I think you look at the pass catching production, and against Oregon, we'll get to that drill. Against Oregon, there wasn't much pass catching production for Lacota Dippre. Against Louisville, there wasn't much pass catching production for Lacota Dippre. In those games combined, he's got 6 targets, 3 catches, 8 yards, and a touchdown. He had the 1 touchdown and a 3-yard catch against Louisville. When you talk about what he's done against Power 4 opponents, it's not great. And I'm not saying this to hate on it. Again, I think there's a role for him to play. I don't think this is a big needle-moving addition right away. And tight end coach Evan McKissick wants to bring him in, wants to have him playing there. I'm good with it. I'm good with the take if it's not a starting role. That's what I'm going to say. If you're bringing him in to be a starter, I think it's not a good take. However, I don't think that that's the plan. I think they're going to say, hey, we've got Tony Livingston, we've got Amir Jackson. This is to have a tight end rotation. When we have a plan or like a game plan in that game that has more inline stuff, sure, Lacota Dippre will play more behind Tony Livingston. Probably going to be what I think. I don't think Tony Livingston's bad. I don't think he's spectacular. I don't think he's bad. And so I think there's part of that. And like Jarrell, I'm not going to say I don't know why I almost said your government. I guess it's because it's your username. But like Jarrell asked, so are we out on the New Mexico tight end? I don't think so. Dorian Thomas, by the way, is the New Mexico tight end. I don't think so, just because they're stylistically different players. Okay. I think they're stylistically different players. I do think that, your tight end room, especially if you get Dorian Thomas, is going to be more athletic than it was in 2025, which, by the way, you lost a lot. You now, with Lacota Dippre, you have 4 tight ends on your roster. That's it. You've got Amir Jackson, Tony Livingston, Micah Jones, and now Lacota Dippre. Like, the early playing time is there immediately for Lacota Dippre. Again, and I want to make this clear as well. Like, I've been very open. I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm not going to crush it, because I do think that he's someone that you're bringing in to rotate. And I think it matters to say, hey, we're bringing in a group of 5 starter, by the way, a playoff group of 5 starter, coming in to be a rotational part of this game plan. If he earns the starting spot, then hell, good on him, right? Like, if he earns the starting spot, then good on him. But he is someone that I look at right now as inline guy, which, by the way, I do think that Florida is going to have more of a clear difference between, hey, these are our inline guys and these are our flexed out tight ends. I think there's going to be a more clear gap there where it's like, yeah, Amir Jackson, if you get Dorian Thomas, those are going to be our flexed out guys. When you look at the inline, you go, all right, we're going to have Tony Livingston, we're going to have Lacota Dippre, and we're going to have Micah Jones. And in line, I'm saying to just say that they'll be the blocking tight ends. Like, they'll play in the slot sometimes, they'll move out. But the roles, I think, are going to be more defined in the tight end room in 2026 for the Florida Gators. And again, this is a kid that you can really say, hey, he's pretty athletic. You look at the yak ability, and this is something that we sent to the insider program, the subtext group, which, by the way, if you're not part of the subtext group, I recommend it. We've been on fire during this portal with a whole bunch of information coming in. It's joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGators. You could join our everydayer program as well, which, I mean, I'm not gonna pretend that I'm not gonna push it, right? The Florida Gators, we're active, right, in the transfer portal right now. Also, yeah, just a non-Florida Gators note, but also kind of Florida Gators note. The Texas A&M transfer wide receiver Isaiah Williams has signed with Kansas State, former Florida Gators commit that flipped to Texas A&M on signing day in the 2024 recruiting class. And he is just following his offensive coordinator, Colin Klein. It's as simple as that. He's just following his offensive coordinator, Colin Klein, to Kansas State, who's now the head coach there. So there's that. But yeah, the Florida Gators getting better here. Plain and simple, getting better. And so I think that you're adding a guy who's going to be a rotational piece immediately. We'll talk more about that. We'll talk about the rest of the portal when we get back with Locked On Gators. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel's making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday night from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I want to make that clear as well. It is Eastern Time. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. And there's nothing like college sports season, right? Tailgates, packed stadiums, just a hell of a good time there, especially be a Florida Gators fan. Like the atmosphere, unmatched. Football, basketball, unmatched. No other way to put it. That's why Gametime gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I go to concerts all the time on Gametime. Love it. Take the guesswork out of buying college tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Nice. You have to make a Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free, whether it's in the podcast and on YouTube. Again, we've got the Everydayer Club with Locked On Gators, or with Locked On in general, where you can go, you can talk to other fan bases in there, other listeners of Locked On, and have a damn good time there. It's fun to troll. Not gonna lie, it's really fun to troll. So I will be in there talking trash to people, especially if the Florida Gators end up becoming good at something. That'd be really fun. I will post the link in the description, or I'll post a link in the chat right now for anybody that wants to see it. And there you go. It's there. You can subscribe. You can join it. You could start at $5 a month, and you get access to the Discord. You can join the Locked On Gators subtext program. Join subtext.com/LockedOnGators. Again, I'm talking about Lacota Dippre, and I'm saying he's not someone that really moves me, but I do think he's someone that can come in and play a role right away. And I want to make it clear that here, because I was someone who for years, when talking about the transfer portal, I was saying you need to get someone that either has proven production at their previous spot or someone that has years of eligibility that you can develop. Or I used to say less than 1 year in college that you can develop. That's changing now. Okay. Lacota Dippre is someone who played defensive line at Charlotte, by the way, which we haven't talked about yet, but played defensive line at Charlotte for 2 years. 1 year at redshirt, 1 year playing defensive line. Had 7 pressures in that time, by the way. It was an okay defensive lineman. And then transferred to James Madison to play full-time tight end. And again, was not super productive in the passing game. 17 catches, 197 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's 11.6 yards per catch. The 197 yards on the year as a receiver for the Florida Gators would have ranked second in the tight end room behind only Hayden Hansen, who had 248. But Hayden also did it on 13 more catches. Okay. Lacota Dippre had one more touchdown. Again, drop rate is similar there. Had one against Oregon that wasn't great. But by the way, he had no drops up until conference championship against Troy and then the game against Oregon, where he had both of his drops on the year. But again, like I said, like you'll see some catches from him that we didn't see from anybody in this tight end room in 2025. Again, I go back to there's the one catch that I forgot who it was against, but he's straight up fully extended, one hand, reels it in, turns, goes. You've got plays like against Oregon. He's got a rushing touchdown where he hurdles people. Like you're going to see a more athletic, more dynamic pass catching inline tight end here. And I think that's what a lot of Florida Gators fans want, right? I will say, again, I've brought this up before when talking about him. There is skepticism from me, at least, about stepping up to the SEC as an inline blocker. Because that's a thing, like similar to how I talk about the group of five, if you've got a poor missed tackle rate against group of five teams or in the group of five against Power 4 teams, then when you come up and you have to play against the SEC, that's tough. With James Madison, he had not a great game against Louisville, not a great game against Oregon, and those were the two best Power 4 teams that he played this year. And so it's not great to say, hey, in those games, you struggled a bit. But at the same time, I do think that with an SEC strength and conditioning program and not a Sun Belt one, and there, I will also say against the Sun Belt, against his level of competition that he was playing against in 2025, he played damn well as a blocker. Like I'm not complaining about what he did as a blocker there. Again, I don't think that this means Florida is out on Dorian Thomas. I still think that that's going to be a player that they target and a player that they try to recruit because, well, I mean, let's just be clear about this one. Also, reports coming out that Florida is expected to land center Harrison Moore from Georgia Tech, who I will be, I think, mostly excited about. Frankly, we'll talk about that when it's time. They're expected to land him there. And so I think that, again, adding a guy with experience, and look, people in the program seem to be pretty excited about him. Okay. People within the program seem to be pretty excited about him. I've had people message me that are just like, oh yeah, like him, like what he could do, immediately going to come in and contribute there. I think that when you watch him come in motion and block, which we saw Florida do a lot with Hayden Hansen, when you come in motion and block, I think that he's actually pretty strong there. But it's going to be fun to just watch how this offense, first off, how this offense shapes out, because I do think that you'll see a good bit of motion. You'll see a good run game. But Lacota Dippre is someone who's going to come in and be, again, going to be, interesting to see, just because, like, it's not often that you see tight ends get carries, right? Especially taking direct snaps like Lacota Dippre has done. So I think that that's going to be really interesting. I think that you have a tight end now that has pass catching upside that you didn't really have in the inline spot before. And I think that you could say, we're not going to look at him and say, this is it for tight end. Florida now has 4 tight ends on the roster, 4 scholarship tight ends on the roster. They're going to try to add a 5th one. You can still add Dorian Thomas and say, hey, you're going to be a part of this game plan. Like you're going to be someone that we're going to target and consistently go after. And you're going to be someone that's going to rotate in and contribute right away. And so I think that you are getting that from Lacota Dippre. I think he's got upside, again, multiple years of eligibility remaining, 2 or 3. I want to say 2 years of eligibility remaining. Yeah, 2 years, because he played as a defensive end in 2024, played as a tight end in 2025. You're looking at someone that's still learning the position, that can come in and contribute and has upside. Like, he's someone that I think you should be excited for the potential, but as far as immediate impact, I'm going to question it. I think that's the best way to describe it. Like I've had trouble explaining exactly how I feel about it, and I recognize that. I think that you're getting someone that has pass catching upside, that has overall developmental upside. But for 2026, I'm going to need to see it against SEC teams. I am. That New Mexico tight end reminds me a lot of Evan Ingram ish. Yeah, ish. I haven't even looked at the chat during this whole thing. Is this a good thing? Again, I think that you're adding someone who can come in and rotate right away, and in 2027 potentially earn a starting role. And I think that that's important. I do. Like when we're talking about the transfer portal, and I alluded to this before, when we're talking about the transfer portal, it's no longer as clear cut as you're looking for. You've got these big high school classes, right? Where you then say, okay, in the portal, we're looking for proven production at their previous spot that can come in and start right away or come in and play a significant role right away. Or we're looking for a guy that's barely been in college and we look at him as an extension of the high school class. The way that John Summerall is going to operate in the transfer portal is going to be, you need to get rotational players, you need to get depth players, and there is a difference there, right? Like depth might play a handful of snaps in a game. Rotational guys they're playing every single game and they're playing, 20 plus snaps every single game. You're going to look for starters. I think Lacota Dippre is a guy that I look at as a rotational player. I'm excited. I'm still waiting to get the All-22 from the James Madison, Oregon College Football Playoff game. And I will be looking for the Louisville one so that we can get an actual in-depth look against him against Power 4 teams. By the way, swampsignal.substack.com. We're going to have scouting reports come out on these players that Florida is getting from the transfer portal. Looking forward to doing that. But again, I like the upside. I like the future edition. As far as an immediate impact player, I don't think I don't want to say he's not an immediate impact player because rotational guys can be. As far as an immediate starter, I don't think that's him. I do think he's got developmental upside, and I want to make that clear. This is a guy who, with a couple of years of eligibility, can come in, play a rotational role, develop, earn a starting role, and then we're talking about it, right? Or maybe he can technically be considered the starting inline guy. Technically, but right now, tight end is a room that needed to be upgraded in 2026 and seems like they are getting upgraded in 2026. So it's a big dude who can block and catch a pass every once in a while. Cool. Yeah, except again, we're talking about making more athletic catches than we've seen previously. And that's important. How many times were we watching? And again, I love Hayden. I've said very publicly, he does not have a big catch radius despite being big, because he's not making those athletic catches very far outside of his frame, right? How often did we see times where you've got, DJ Lagway, who obviously isn't here anymore, but DJ Lagway throwing it outside of his frame, and then it's not a catchable ball because Hayden's not going to make those catches. Now you got a guy that might make those one-handed catches outside of his frame. Now you've got a guy that might make players miss after the catch. You've got those things. And so we'll look forward to that. I do think as pass protector, he can contribute there and help there. I will say that. When I've talked about blocking most of the time, I've been talking about his run blocking. But I do think in pass protection, he can help out there. He's had some rough goes of things. Not gonna sugarcoat that. But for the most part, he's been pretty consistent as a pass protector. You're getting a guy with potential and upside, and that's something to be excited about. But you can also say, hey, as far as what we have proven right now, we've got 1 year with 17 catches. Some of those catches, really impressive. Some of the drops, not so much. The yard after catch ability, impressive. What he's done against Power 4 opponents, maybe not so much outside of the rushing touchdown against Oregon. That was an impressive as hell run. So I think you've got this trade-off, but again, you're looking at a team that has a lot of holes, a lot of needs, and you just filled one. I know I said, and I'm going to say this about a lot of the portal guys, whether or not I think they're awesome additions or not. The Florida Gators got better today. Their tight end room got better today, especially after the attrition that you had after the season. So we can be happy about things like that. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free. We have us in the podcast and on YouTube. We will be back hopefully later today with more commitments. Hopefully that happens. I'm tired of the expected to transfer to. I want the commitment announced. I know the Georgia Tech guys are getting the expected to because of Georgia Tech taking their sweet time with letting guys actually officially into the portal. Gotta love college football. But we'll be back to talk more about those commits that we hopefully get later on today. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI and swampsignal.substack.com for Florida Gators written work. And I will see you all next time.